is protecting pasture and profit in a drought. And yeah, we are most definitely in a drought, all of Wales and something like 75% of England been in a drought status now for 2 or 3 weeks. Bit of rain in the forecast and experienced the last couple of days. A bit more hopefully going to come through, but yeah, hopefully it's the start of the turn, but it's going to take a while for things to recover, and we'll talk through some of that recovery in today's session. So the agenda for the session looks like this. I'm going to do a bit of review on the year to date and how might this autumn play out. Hand over to Fran, she's going to introduce herself and Eilir, and then together they're going to talk through a bit of the here and now. So what are we doing currently, and just checking in with that plan, making sure we're doing the right things and doing them in the right way. And then we also have a look ahead at feed budget, what's the gap that we might need to fill, how the economics are stacking up, and to some of the tools and actions we might do to make sure we sort of survive in this season to thrive in the next. I think is the plan. So the review piece from myself then, well, if we look at year-to-date figures, and these have been taken from the AHDB Forage for Knowledge programme, so that's using a subset of farmers measuring grass across the UK. If I pull out the data from really only the farms that are in the south, and I've broadly defined that as being south of Manchester, not that that's particularly a formal line, but just because that area or regions we've seen sort of lower growth and lower pasture or lower rainfall amounts in this current season. The farms in the south then, so this includes farmers in Wales who contribute to that programme, have measured or grass growing for the year to date, so this is the year to mid-August, is about 16% less overall. So by the time we got to basically the start of this week, we were already 1.2 tonnes of dry matter down per hectare. So if we take what could be a typical dairy farm with 350 cows, 100 hectare grazing platform, and about 90 hectares of support, then that farm for year to date against the kind of rolling 3-year average is 250 tonnes of dry matter down so far. And also that varies farm to farm. The question is then, as this gap has started to appear, you see on that graph that kind of difference between the grey line, the average, and the green being the actual. As we look ahead as to what could happen next, or what's likely to happen going forwards, well, the broad scenario is we don't get any, I guess, meaningful rain until September. And then as we hit September, kind of the drought starts to break. And through September, we pick up the 50 mil plus that's needed to turn things around, to get grass or pastures greening up and to get grass growing. And with the theory that we may be able to start grazing again, towards the end of September and into the first week of October. Now, clearly that period where we're not growing any grass creates a bit of a hole. And I think this season, of maybe similar to last season, I don't think or feel that we're going to be able to compensate and recover the sort of reduction or the gap in pasture dry matter that's been created by this extended dry season. Some seasons we have, and we've had a really growy back end. I don't think the back end's long enough, nor we have enough daylight to realise that. So the broad scenario we're working through with our clients at the minute is this one, which is if the farm on average grows sort of 11.5 tonnes, we're going to be back about 2.5 tonnes, or about 20-25% on that annual dry matter yield across the farm. So in this scenario, that put that 190 hectare farm back about 500 tonnes dry matter, which is quite a bit. So it's quite a nice segue for me to hand over to Fran and Eilir to talk about how that maybe can be managed, what the implications are, and what things is he considering in his, or are they considering in their respective businesses. So Fran, I'll stop sharing and hand over to yourself.
Thanks, James. I'll just share my screen. Hi everyone, thanks so much for coming along today. Just bring up my presentation. Bear with me for one moment. I'll introduce myself. So I'm Fran, I'm the Precision Grazing Dairy Advisor, newly appointed Dairy Advisor. I've got some photos on the screen here. On the left, I've got the worst drought I've probably ever seen in New Zealand in 2020, February 2020. We ended up drying off the whole herd in March, which is the equivalent to September here. When you're in a country that is totally geared towards dairy farming, there was no supplement to be heard of. And so we're really limited on options. But the following season was absolutely phenomenal, and we broke all of our production targets, KPIs. So my learning was it always averages out, and it taught me the importance of harvesting as much pasture as possible early in the season. If New Zealand was closer, we'd all be farming there, but the timing was right recently to return home, and I've been really lucky to be connected with the farm here at Broadhaven. This is a challenging farm, but I'm enjoying it more and more as time goes on. Thanks to James for the opportunity to be part of Precision Grazing. I'm really looking forward to being back working with farmers and helping them meet their goals and ambitions. So we'll move on to Eilir. So Eilir, thanks so much for giving up your time to be here with us today and for so kindly giving us an insight into your farming business. You're running 2 pasture-based dairy units in Ceredigion, and you've got extensive experience managing grass, feed and performance within a grazing system. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Fran. Great, and it's great to be here actually. Yeah, we farm in mid-Ceredigion, then only a few miles from the coast. I think what we found as the current situation is that I think, yeah, it's pretty grim where we are, but there's a lot of people worse off than us then. I think in the grazing situation then. We've got 2 herds then, 3 miles apart, both of them spring calving, one of them beginning of February, and Harvard then is beginning of March. So our aim is to produce as much milk from grazed grass then as we can. So we do aim for up to 300 days grazing a year. It's one of our KPIs then. So at the moment it's a bit frustrating that we can't get enough grass into them, but that's the way it is. We've just got to deal with it and find a way of moving on into our end of lactation really, and planning for next year. As in myself, I had some experience working in New Zealand back in 1998 for a season, which really gave me the hunger really to come back and along with the grazing side of it, maybe help me envisage running a business with scale as well, which I learned a lot out there actually, as in managing that element. So yeah, I'm hoping I can pass that on to other people as well, what we're doing, because we try and keep it simple where we are. I don't like complicating things if possible. So basically a lot of cows, but in a simple system. We always concentrate on having a low cost of production if we can. So same rules apply every year, and the same for this period now really is just trying to look at low cost of production, but keep an eye on the on what we produce as well. So yeah, thank you, Fran.
Thanks, Eilir. It's great to see you've got such a high-performing and productive system, maintaining a strong focus on pasture and crop discipline and cost discipline. So if we look at protecting pasture, kick off looking at pasture, Eilir, do you want to talk us through your current grazing management? What does that look like right now?
Yeah, well, this is from the end of July then, okay? So we came down to just under 1,800 average farm cover. It's worse now, so I haven't been around grazing actually. So we did take the decision back before this actually, just to extend our round length to 40 days, just because we wanted to protect the pasture. Main aim is to aid in our recovery when the rains come. We found back in 2018 when we were affected last, then we carried on grazing too long, and it affected us when the rains came, and we were slow in getting back up to where we wanted to be then. So we're trying to protect our grass then and pastures, but at the same time, at this time, we were trying to graze as much of the higher covers as possible then as well, because they were going backwards and burning off then. So it's just, I think going into a drought, I think the hard bit is that transition of moving from what you're used to at what stage do you bring in fodder, do you increase the feeds and things. So that's the challenge, and there is no right or wrong answer. You've just got to get all the facts you've got, as in how much grass you've got available in the field, how much fodder you've got harvested in the clamps. Get all of those in front of you really, and just make a call based on that, along with the workload as well. I think that's important as well, that it can work pretty simple then. So we went back to a 40-day rotation. We're now on a 60-day rotation actually, but it's the amount of grass in the diet has been dropping slowly. So we brought them in the day around 2 weeks ago, fully fed on silage in the day, along with 3 to 4 kilos in the parlour, and we've been feeding either palm kernel or a blend, a high starch blend on the silage then. That's been up to 4 kilos then. So we are down now to maybe between 2 and 4 kilograms of grass in the diet. So I think it's about time most probably we fully house them. Now we'll be just trying to get them out to help in the routine, the housing routine really. We're lucky on the home farm. We've got a new housing facility which we are able to house them. At Havo then, a bit more challenge, a few more cows, so a bit of on-off grazing will still be done there. But I think we've got to keep an eye on that we don't go around too many paddocks and just let them have a rest, and which hopefully will aid in recovery then.
Eilir, sorry to interrupt you. Have you got a specific trigger point there where you will actually stop grazing? Is there an average pasture, average farm cover that you think that's probably where you need to stop?
I think we passed it actually. I think it was maybe under 2,000 we should have maybe stopped, but we had a lot of grass which had gone to seed and things, and I just found there was no point in leaving that in the field. And it's a job to get an accurate measurement, this time as well, because residual levels differ from field to field. So it is a job, but I think maybe when we do get to recovery stage, I think that the 2 to 3 leaf stage maybe will become more relevant, as in when you actually graze that plant, rather than the actual measurement itself.
Definitely. So that's great, Eilir. We've got to protect the crown of the grazing plant or the ryegrass plant at all costs, and that probably means not grazing below 1,500 kilograms of dry matter. Grazing below that point is going to remove the plant's energy reserves, and that's going to have a huge stunting effect on your autumn pasture recovery. So please don't do it. Once you hit that average farm cover of about 1,500, it's time to stop grazing. And just like you said, the 2.5 to 3 leaf stage, grazing stage, will become a lot more relevant once the rain returns, and we're able to ensure we harvest as much pasture as possible. The plant's going to have time to restore its energy reserves, grow a larger root mass if we're grazing at 2.5 leaves, and that's particularly important as we head into the autumn, because we're going to be having our ryegrass plants produce daughter tillers, which is going to have a huge flow-on effect to next season and how productive your pastures are. So when we do get it back out grazing, really important that we are trying to go in at 2.5 leaves. So we'll move on to feeding the dairy cow and young stock in the drought. Eilir, do you want to talk us through your current daily feed allocation to your milking herd?
Yeah, I will. Most of it now is down to silage then. And we haven't taken a silage sample yet this year, because we usually wait until the end of the season then, and we test everything. But we've always tried to make as best a silage as we can, really. So most of our silage is at least over 11 ME, 11 ME plus then. So we reckon we're feeding the best stuff we've got at the moment then, which I think is key to maintaining yields going into the autumn. You know, I'm talking now maybe about a spring calving block. For an autumn calving, it might be different, either coming to an end of lactation or start. But for a spring calving, we're 2/3 into lactation. So it's still pumping out a lot of milk, a lot of solids. So I think our aim is to maintain that with as best of feed we can in that diet. So along with the silage, I reckon we're on 10 kgs at the moment of silage going into the ration. 3 kilos of cake in the parlour, and maybe 4 to 5 kilograms of blend or palm kernel going on top of the silage then.
Nice.
Which gives you 18. We're basically on 18 kgs ahead.
And what's your milk production at the moment, Eilir?
It's currently sitting between 17 and 18 litres a cow. It's around 1.6 kilograms of milk solids a day, which mean higher fats. You know, we're up over 9% fats and proteins then. So for this time of year, you know, it's great percentage solids really. So, you know, we are being rewarded for that in a way, even though maybe the milk is down a bit. But yeah, you know, I'm happy. Cow condition, I think we'll move on to cow condition, but I think when you are feeding these type of feeds, you know, there's less variation in grass being a wet day, a dry day. So cows tend to put on good weight and maintain condition well in this condition. So we're pretty happy actually that, you know, yeah, they'll come out of it hopefully looking okay.
Nice, thanks, Eilir. So got your calves here, nice picture of your calves. When was this photo? Certainly not now.
You know, I was trying to look for photos of drought condition cows. You know, I don't know, this was in a sheltered valley then up in the Youngstock block, and I happened to go home from the Steddfod one day to move the calves and things, and yeah, well, that's what they had. So yeah, I think with Youngstock, I think it's more of a challenge than the milking cows. You can actually see with the milking cows in the milk tank if they are getting enough feed or not. I think in general with Youngstock, R1s and R2s, you know, it's always a challenge as to whether they're getting enough dry matter into them, because a lot of people say, oh, calves and heifers are content, but I always compare it to maybe being on an all-inclusive holiday, sitting by the pool when it's 40 degrees and you can't be bothered to do anything. So that's exactly what they are. They, you know, you've got to really be more in tune with how much feed they've actually got in front of them. And I think there's more of a challenge in not overgrazing with young stock than cows maybe. So it just, yeah, I think that's quite challenging as well. We are putting in some bales now for the young stock, especially the R2s, which are going to stretch that rotation out then. So they aren't going around too fast then. And again, same rules, we're trying to build a bit of cover for the autumn again for that, so we can keep them out longer then.
Brilliant. That's absolutely right, Eilir. We really don't want to forget about these guys. It's easily done. If you were wanting to monitor your calves, are you weighing at all?
Yeah, we're weighing monthly usually, or when we are treating them with something. Worm burden seems to be very low in the calves at the moment, but you can expect that to change once the rains come and the grass gets wetter then. So yeah, we will be bringing them in now just to weigh them in the next few days, most probably, just to get an update on where they are and how they're doing then.
So we're aiming for about 0.7 to 0.8 of kilograms live weight per day gain for those guys. If you saw that they were dropping off in their weight gain, what would be your strategy to pull them back?
I would love to say give them more of an area, but there's no point in doing that in this time. Yeah, we'd have to think about raising the feed going into them. Maybe they're in two. We've got 230 R1s then, currently split in two. So we could possibly split them into 3 blocks then, 3 batches then, maybe, and that's one thing we could look at. I think it's worth bearing in mind that I think we need to aim for a higher growth rate than 0.8 at the moment, because we know once they're into the winter and on grass and bales or on crops, you know, that growth rate will decline to maybe 0.5, 0.6 maybe. So we've got to have that going into that winter before we set on that then.
Absolutely. A growth check now will push out the age of first calving for these guys. And it'll basically take them longer to get in calf. So really important that we are keeping tabs on this and just making sure that those dietary levels are at the absolute minimum. So 10 megajoules of ME per unit, and the crude protein of the diet needs to be a minimum of 12% to ensure that the skeletal growth doesn't fall off. Thanks, Eilir. That's great. So go through these photos. Making a plan, so quantifying the feed gap. I've used Eilir's farm as an example. This is really, really simple stuff. So first of all, I just need to know what's my total daily demand. So we've got 380 cows. They're eating 18 kilograms of dry matter a day. So per day, that's 6.8 tons of dry matter I need. So how many days should I plan for the drought to continue? This is really difficult because I can't give you a definitive answer. What are your thoughts on 50 days, Eilir? Do you think that's is that accurate? Is that out the gate? What are your thoughts?
I'm not going to try and be a fortune teller at all, but I think having a plan, when you are making a plan, say from now to say next April, I would rather split it up into blocks, and it just looks less daunting in a way. You know, whatever happens from now until say the 1st of October, okay, box that to keep it to one side, but then you know, then if you can reach say an average cover of 2.3, 2.4 by the 1st of October, well, you should be able to budget then from there to closing when they're all housed. And then, well, over winter then, well, we know, well, basically we would feed around a ton over those winter months, or 1.25 to 1.5 tons dry matter per cow from 1st of October to end of March. That's our guideline then for how much feed we need there. And you just break it up then, and then if they do eat for another 50 days of forage in your clamps, you know, you can work out how much short you're going to be then. And it's all like, you know, it's all a gamble and what ifs, isn't it? So you just can't, you can only prepare with the information you've got, really.
And how much risk are you prepared or comfortable to sit with? Absolutely. So we've only used the milking cows as an example here. I haven't got young stock or any other stock classes, so please don't forget those when you do your calculations. As a rule of thumb, we've got to include the time it takes for the pasture to start growing again post-drought. So there could be a 3-week lag due to the presence of dead and decaying matter, and then we'll get those new shoots coming through. At present, I think 50 days is a prudent time to be preparing for. And at this feeding level, including a 3-week lag, that's presuming that we're going to get at least 50 mils of rain in mid-October. So who knows if that will actually happen, but that's what we're going to plan for. So how many total tons of dry matter do I require for the drought? And I've also got to remember winter and spring requirements. And then I've just got to look at, have I got enough on farm, or am I going to have to purchase feed? So before we look at purchasing feed, quite important that we actually have a plan around reducing demand on farm. So Eilir, how would you go about identifying any passengers in your herd?
Identifying passengers. Yeah, basically cows, I would think, right, if you're cows which are not going to be with you in spring next year, you've got a choice then whether to get rid now or in the next few months. I think empty cows, possibly. High cell count cows, Yonis cows. Those are cows which would be top of our list, really. And it's a balance then, of how much an effect that does in getting rid of those cows early. Bearing in mind as well, it is good to be able to milk. You've got to milk on somewhere to get those days of milk this year again, which as well will help in paying or writing off whatever cost you're doing now. But if there's cows which are not going to be with you in spring, yeah, they would be number one on our list to get rid of.
Definitely, and I think it's on a situational basis, isn't it? If you're in sort of crisis mode, I think you're probably going to be wanting to pull a few of these levers. So first one's probably group cows early, like you say, preg test, identify your empties, sell any empties and porters, and basically get rid of any passengers. Once a day milking. So once a day milking will reduce the cow's energy demand by about 10 to 15%. And you can expect about a 5 to 10% reduction in milk production, 5 to 10% reduction in milk production, depending on the quality of her feed. But it's an excellent option if you're wanting to halt body condition score loss. Selective group dry off. So can I target some low yielders and some lighter cows early? And this completely removes their lactation feed demand. And bit of a sort of not sure about this one. Is there any land available to rent nearby where you can graze off your young stock or dry cows? We've done an example here. So this is a 400 cow herd eating 18 kilograms of dry matter a day. Tomorrow, we're going to get rid of 40 animals. So these are our empties and genuine culls. If we were to do that from tomorrow to November, we would save 63 tons of dry matter. What do you think, Eilir? Is that a worthwhile bite off the total feed gap?
Yes, definitely. You've got to consider it. Yeah, it's it's 63 tons less of feed most probably you have to buy in. So looking at it that way, it is definitely a saving. Yeah.
And we're looking to prioritize our capital stock. We want to save that feed for our capital stock. And I think it's worth probably just saying it's easy to get caught up in the emotion of dropping litres in the tank, but your milking cows and your replacement heifers are the long-term capital that's going to drive your business. So you need to protect those and don't wait until it's too late.
I think with the once a day,
yeah.
If you are going to go for that option, I think the sooner rather than later is the time to do that.
Definitely.
We've done it in the past, mainly due to maybe body condition score of the first calvers, maybe. But the sooner you actually implement it, the better the results. I think the drop in milk is less overall if you can do it straight away then.
Definitely, you're absolutely right. Don't wait until you've fallen off the cliff, because the drop will be even greater when you do eventually go. That's a great point. So options to purchase feed. So this is a really tricky piece here, and there's quite a lot to say about it. So what supplement you buy and what's going to be the best choice for your farm is totally dependent on your situation, the feed setup, and what's actually available to you. Are you able to procure grass silage cheap from nearby? That could be a fantastic option for you, but not viable for somebody else further away. So we've just got to think about a few different things. Eilir, you spoke earlier about palm kernel and a blend. What are your thoughts on purchasing supplement to fill the gap? Are you quite happy to do that?
Yes, I am at the moment. We've got to get something to fill the gap, the deficit we have. If we concentrated just solely on silage, I know we would actually run out and we'd have to buy a lot more feed in. So it's a case of buying good quality and buying energy really
yes.
Into the diet. we're not chasing for yield. We're just trying to maintain the cow's milk production and the condition, really. So I see the palm kernel and some of these blends are high in energy then, and they actually make a good job of maintaining both milk and condition, really. It's a case, well, obviously dairy cake is the most expensive, so it's okay to raise it a bit, but you've got to be aware of the risk of acidosis and things then. Where I think advice I was given years ago, if you're going to raise the grain element in the diets and things, you've got to include straw or hay then, just to reduce the risk of acidosis and things for the cow health then. So a mixture of everything really we're putting in, if we can.
Great, yes, great point you raised about acidosis too. So when we talk about milk solids response to supplement, if we actually want to put a number on these things, the milk solids response to supplement when feeding a hungry cow is always excellent. But the law of diminishing returns applies. So the more fully fed the cow is, the less of an economic response you're going to see to that feed. And similarly, the longer the drought continues, the less of a response we're going to see to those feeds. It will get to a point where it becomes totally uneconomical. But it's also important to remember there's going to be a positive deferred response, milk solids response, because by feeding now, we're going to be able to graze later. We're going to be able to keep those cows in milk. So there's almost two responses, if you like. So my key message here is just try and buy your cheapest source of feed to keep those cows milking. And obviously there's going to be a bit of a nuance to the situation. If you are autumn calving and you've got fresh autumn calvers there, you're going to need to prioritize your highest energy, highest quality feed to those cows and preferentially feed them. And your later lactation cows will be okay. Work with what you've got. If you've got lower quality silage, but you've got plenty of it, just work with it, get through that, get through this drought, this dry stage, and just be milking on the other side. And I'd say, given that very average response to milk solids response to feed, I'd say don't get caught up in the emotion of chasing production. The focus needs to be on just maintaining milk production and get to the other side again, which is going to have a positive effect on your on-farm revenue. Eilir, you also said silage. Silage is probably going to be the most committed, the most limiting commodity on farm. So some thought should probably be given to how you can make that last a bit longer. So I think you said hay. Can I buy a bit of hay for the winter, or do I want to trickle in a bit of palm kernel to just stretch out those sorts of feeds a bit longer? So it's just something.
I think hay is a good feed. The beauty of feeding cows well in late lactation is their body condition score should be pretty good at drying off.
Yes.
So then you've got more options then really to feed poorer quality feed. When the cow's demand is much lower, it's just makes sense then to, okay, what can I get hold of which is cheaper and possibly less quality just to get them through it.
Yeah.
So that's a good way of stretching what you have in store then.
Definitely. So fabulous lead into body condition score. What is your strategy on farm to managing body condition score? Is it something that you actively monitor?
Yes. Yeah. We don't necessarily do it on a spreadsheet or anything like that. We just have a walk through, then maybe mark up the random 50 cows. And I think once you, in certain times of the year, then in spring, then what you want is a trend. Is you do it once this week and you do it again in maybe 2 weeks' time to see what the cows are doing, as in what changes are happening. Now is the same. I got a few friends who body condition score all cows at scanning time, which gives a good indication of how they're going to feed into the autumn. I think anything with a low body condition score, you could either spit out or once a day, or possibly dry off earlier. That'll reduce demand for the whole herd then. But I think if you are buying in feeds like a blend, high starch or high energy feeds, it will have a positive impact on their on the condition going forward then.
Definitely. And a milking cow is much more efficient, 20% more efficient at converting feed into live weight when she's milking, because she's primed for milk production. Her body is highly metabolized. She's going to be able to put on that weight much faster than as a dry cow. And a really interesting question, Eilir, what would you be feeding? How many total kilograms of dry matter would you be feeding a dry cow?
We budget on between 12 and 13.
12 and 13.
Yeah.
And go on.
Yeah, and that's based on a 525 kilo cow. Really, yeah.
And you're feeding your milking cow 18 kilos, 17 kilos. So there's not that much of a gap. If you can be getting something back, if you can be continuing to milk, you're actually getting something back on that feed. So do protect your asset. Body condition score target at calving is non-negotiable for a successful year. So we know cows at calving that are below body condition score target are going to take longer to cycle, and they're going to produce less milk solids. And that's going to lead to a subsequent wider calving spread the following year, higher empty rates, and a lower 6-week in calf rate. So it's not worth mining body condition score for the sake of milk production. We've got to keep this on our radar. Knowing your trigger points. So if a cow is at 2.75, you're in the warning zone, really. You need to be taking some action for that cow. And that might look like splitting her off into a different herd for preferential feeding. Perhaps there might be a once-a-day herd. And looking at calving dates, so earliest calvers probably need to be prioritised at this time. So I'm going to hand over to James now to assess pastures post-drought. James, do you want to take control, or are you happy for me to keep the slides?
Happy for you to keep the slides. Would you mind just pressing the mouse or space bar a few times so just bring up the content? No. So no, thanks both. It's been good discussion so far. I just wanted to talk briefly around what we do as rain arrives, with a note that with the extended dry period, there's been a little bit of discussion. I think it's actually Piers Bracknell in his article in Farmers Week mentioned it around, are the plants just dormant or are they dead? Dormant plants will certainly recover, dead plants won't. And so I think it's a bit of a heads up for guys to have a look around the paddock and just to assess what is, what the current situation is. Now, where pasture covers have been protected and where paddocks have been rested, they're very likely to be dormant and recovering. But paddocks that have been sacrificed, or maybe new lays that have been that were prone to sort of stress through the dry weather, then some of those plants, species within that sward could now be dead and therefore won't come back. And what will replace them is some seed from the seed bank that exists within the soil. And now that if we're lucky, that could be preferential species, and if we're not, it could be some weed species and less desirable. So it's as good time as any to get around the farm and on a paddock by paddock basis, particularly look at those that have been overgrazed and abused a bit, to have a look at the plants there. And if you click on through that slide and into sort of the next couple of slides, Fran, then we'll look at images of that. There we go. So best way to check visually is to pop out with the pocket knife. You kind of carefully pull out a plant. So this is sort of looking at sort of grasses. Slice open the plant through that kind of growing point through the base, and we're looking for kind of white roots, white sheath, and ideally a bit of green sitting in around the base of that plant, either some tillers that are coming through and just hiding, or this kind of base of living bud that sits within the centre of that plant, or that grass plant. If we don't see those, and if that grass plant comes away from the soil very easily, if it's brown and heading towards being black, then it's likely that plant's dead. So we put a decision to make then: is there enough kind of viable seed in the seed bank that will rekindle by itself, or are we thinking it's more weed species? So knowing the paddock history, the grazing history and the reseeding history of that paddock, then we can maybe make a call on what the best thing to do is. Just flip on to the next slide. Yeah, so just that's visually. So we haven't seen anything that's looking that green for a while. We've got a lot of sort of golden brown farms. If that's the case, that's fine. The warning sign is anything that's gone kind of from golden brown towards kind of muddy to dark brown and toward black. then that could be an indication there might be some issue, some concern there that plants have died off. And yeah, knowing the history of that paddock, make a decision on whether you're going to need to overseed or reseed it. The safest way is to wait kind of, post rain to see how paddocks recover. I think our concern on that is waiting too long is we'll run out of kind of temperature and daylight for new seedlings to take effect. I.e., we wouldn't really suggest kind of reseeding with clovers. Maybe past the start of September in the north and mid-September in the south. Now, the way the season plays out, we might have a different opportunity if soil temperatures being so high. But still, we've got to get those clovers established and get them through the winter, should it be a cold one. So that's something else to consider. Appreciate it's amongst other things, but it's worth bearing in mind, because what we do want to see is next spring is we need to hit the ground running with a farm that's got sort of full coverage of ground and dense leafy pastures to capture the opportunity that next season might bring. Fran, how about you? I just note on the time frame we got 13 minutes, and I've not seen any questions come through yet, but we do want to pause for those at the end. So yeah, I'll give you a kind of a 5-minute warning. So see how we get on.
Great. Need to pick up the pace a bit. Thank you, James, very much. These last few slides, these are going to be timely reminders for you. I think I don't need to go into too much depth. Feed budget. So just got a template here, but there's plenty to choose from. Good feed budget is going to identify a total feed shortage early. It's going to show you your clear trigger points, but most importantly, it's going to protect next year's farm revenue. Eilir, earlier on, you mentioned that you like to split it. So you might take a chunk for the autumn, and then you'll do a winter and spring chunk as well. Do you want to talk us through that a little bit?
Well, we will hopefully keep cows out grazing until the first week of December. But we'll have, we need to be back to where we usually are by the 1st of October by then, really. If we can build covers up by the 1st of October, to have a good amount of grass in the diet going forward. And then from then onwards, then we try and close off the pasture at around 2,200 kilograms dry matter level. So, and then hopefully by the spring, we'll have a bit more to start off grazing. I think what's key, what's one of the pluses maybe of having a dry summer is hopefully the ground condition will stay pretty firm into grazing in the autumn and into winter. So I can maybe see that's going to be a bit of a benefit then.
That leads us quite nicely into the autumn rotation planner. I hope James doesn't mind, but I think I'm going to keep moving past these slides. Please jump in if you disagree, James.
No, that's fine, Karen.
Autumn rotation planner. So using the autumn rotation planner is going to ensure that we do gradually slow down the rotation, and we're going to shut up the farm with adequate pasture cover to kick off in the spring. And I like to think of the autumn rotation planner like holding the line. We're just going to hold the line. We need to know your start and end dates and the total hectares you've got available to graze. Your start date might be late September, depending on when we get back out. Hopefully we'll be grazing by then. Your closing date is when your cows are going to be housed, which might be mid-November, late November, which is about 50 to 55 days in this example. Eilir, remind me again, what was your target average farm cover at closing?
2,200.
2,200, yeah, nice.
Yeah. But I think with autumn rotation planner, I think it's a no-brainer really, right? Okay, because rather than hoping to be out grazing until 1st of December, with the planner, you actually will be out grazing until the 1st of December. And it's just, there's a few things which are not in your control, whether mainly them, but with things like this, you can actually plan to be out by just tweaking little things along the way with the information you've got. So I think having a plan going into your last grazing of the year, really, I think is critical. Yeah.
That's great. I like how you say, taking back some control. I think that's quite powerful. So we're going to be working backwards here, thinking about what we want our average farm cover to be at calving. So depending on what you grow throughout the winter, some will grow more than others. So your your targets will be different, but I would really encourage you not to drop below 2,000 at all, ever, really. But particularly at calving, you want to be going out around 2.2, 2.3. I've put 2.1 as an absolute minimum. But what that's going to mean is that you've got plenty of leaf cover out on the farm, plenty of cover to capture sunlight and perform photosynthesis. And that's going to make sure that you keep growing. You're going to grow fast enough to keep up with your cow demand in the spring. We're going to have to be really disciplined when we get back out and we get out grazing, because the temptation is going to be there to make up lost ground and eat up as much pasture as we can. But this is just a timely reminder that pasture in the spring is worth 3 times more than in the autumn. So really important that you just maintain your focus on protecting revenue now, but we have got to think about next season as well. And your round length should reflect that you are grazing at 2.5 leaves. So however long, however many days it's taking for one leaf emergence, you've got to be on an appropriate round length. And in the autumn rotation planner, the paddocks that you graze first here, these are generally going to be the paddocks that you graze first in the spring. So you might want to have a tactical think about, where are my driest paddocks so I can get out, turn my cows out nice and early in the spring. And the main aim, very basically, is just to close the farm in a strong position for calving. But the key here is we've got to be measuring pasture. So it's all well and good to use the planner, but am I actually measuring against and tracking how I'm going? Because if you're growing better than what we think, you actually might get away with a few more grazing days. But if you're not measuring, you're not going to know. So really important that we keep tabs on that. So nitrogen and slurry management, we're coming towards the end of our slides now. Rule of thumb, so 50 to 70 mils of rain is going to mean that we've broken our drought, hopefully, but it does need to be followed by consistent rain each week. Eilir, are we going to be rushing out with the nitrogen spreader when we get that rain?
I would like to tell you that most probably we'll have one more application, but I think we're running out of time really to spread that fertilizer. I think use can be made of dirty water, palo washings, slurry, on the platform maybe to aid in the recovery once, a few weeks after the rains come. We won't be rushing out with it, no. I think it'll be plenty of residual N in the ground, hopefully, to get us going.
Absolutely, yeah. So I wouldn't be relying on bagged nitrogen to drive your autumn flush if you think that's how we're going to climb out of this drought. There is a large pool of mineralized N in the soil, and that rain coming is going to release those nutrients like a floodgate, and we'll get a huge autumn flush. A lot of that nitrogen will be released for plant uptake, and a lot will be lost to groundwater. And if you go and put more on top of that, guess where that's going to go? It's not going to go in the plant. So I would totally agree with Eilir. This is a golden opportunity to utilize slurry and get your pond down before winter. Eilir, you had a really good rule of thumb for when you will and won't use nitrogen. Did you want to tell us about that?
Oh, I just heard it somewhere about 30 kilograms dry matter per day, basically. So
gross, yeah.
Both. So you should be able to grow that amount without the N. And so if it drops under 30 kilograms of N, 30 kilograms of growth a day, you've got to question the use of bagged fertilizer then. Bagged nitrogen.
I think that's a great rule, rule of thumb to work by. So nice slide to sort of wrap up. I think this is a really powerful graph that shows how your focus changes from this year to next year. We are here, we're almost at September. In the spring, your focus is gradually beginning to shift. And by mid-year, you're about 50-50 on this year and next year. And at this point, decisions are already being made for the current year and increasingly need to consider your impact on next year. So you'll be mating, you'll have your winter crops in the ground. And by the autumn, where we almost are, the focus is strongly on next year. So cow condition, forage planning, winter management, and setting up for next year. And I think ultimately this shows us that we've got to be really careful now. Whilst we do want to maximise our performance in the current year, we are now preparing for next year's success. Next year doesn't actually start in January. The decisions that we make today are shaping next year's performance. So key take-home messages: have a plan. I think that's clear. Now to spring 2027, don't just get out the drought. Make sure that you've actually got a plan for winter and spring. Review your forage stocks and feed budget. Plan for late cut silage or extending grazing with young stock. Cull low-value cows once a day or drying off. Know your trigger points, your average farm cover targets and your body condition score targets, and take action early. Be proactive versus reactive. And I think great opportunity to thank Eilir. Thank you so much for giving up your time and being so open about how you run your business. What I love about your strategy is that you have stripped emotion out of a really high pressure situation, and you're sticking to the numbers, you're planning, and you're demonstrating what it means to be proactive. So thank you very much. Next step, so advice and support. So we are here to help. We've got a few different services on offer. Please do reach out if we can help you with any of these things: drought management, feed budgeting, cash flows, grazing management, pasture assessment and renewal advice, farm systems review, and personal development for managers and staff. If you're interested, please do just email dairy@precisiongrazing.com. And I will hand it back to James to talk us through the Eilir trial.
Yeah, no, cool. Thanks for that. I'll extend my thanks to both of you as well. There's a lot of useful advice shared, and the situation is, a bit of pressure behind it. We don't want it being dry, but it's gone on a few weeks too long at this stage. So there's support is there, and Fran, you've got a lot of knowledge and been through this before. Happy to help people that if they want to, a second opinion to talk through their options, then please get in touch. On the pasture measurement side, then for you guys joining us will know that we've been working with Eilir New Zealand to develop a way of measuring grass using a smartphone. So it's not satellite based; it sits locally on the phone and it works without mobile internet connection. So you can use it anywhere on the farm. Quite a bit quicker than the plate meter. Comparable accuracy, and it works for anyone in the team. Not more comparable between users. So if anyone fancies using that when the grass does eventually return, noting how important it will be to keep track of average farm cover this autumn. If you like to be pushed for time, particularly if you're autumn calving, then it could be a good tool to have a go with. So we've got a 30-day free trial. Get in touch with us on those links, and we'll get you set up and have a go with that. There's also a couple of questions, Fran, which we can certainly end on. So if you guys are up for those, I'll ask them now. David Camp asks, assuming we get back to grazing kind of by the end of September, what is it best to do? Is it best to kind of go slow and just aim to go around the farm once before closing it up, or is the aim to try and go around multiple times? And what would you look to give us the indication as to when those plants have recovered?
If we were looking at end of September now, we usually think then that you only graze the farm once from 1st of October to the 1st of December. I know that graze it once because you won't get enough leaf back to graze it for the second time then, so it needs a rest. So we will set it up then, so we do one rotation beginning or the start of October, and how long that rotation depends on what your infrastructure is really and where do you want to reach. If it's a 60-day rotation, it could be as easily as just 1/60th of the farm every day. That's just simple maths. Or if you've got housing facilities, you could send them out to graze on a higher percentage of the farm, even with low forage going in, and house them earlier. This option is completely up to what you've got on farm to play with, really.
Thank you, Eilir. And then perhaps Fran, one for you to speak to. So from Rob, just noting that for UK dairy farmers, particularly for a lot of contracts, autumn milk's worth quite a bit more than the spring. It certainly has been in the last few seasons. So does that, Brandon, you might comment on this as well. Does that awareness alter the approach to supplementation and that focus on the days in milk, number of days in milk being achieved?
Yeah, I think it. Oh, sorry.
You go, Fran. You go, Fran.
I think it depends on a farm by farm basis. If you're measuring, you know everything, you know all your numbers, and you know how much you're growing, and you are in perhaps a luxury position that you've got plenty of feed on hand, I think it's definitely worth going for it and trying to capture that autumn production. But where I think it isn't going to pay economically is where you are doing it at the detriment to next season, because we know that the decisions that you're making now are going to have a huge effect on next year. And certainly if you're not measuring and you don't really know what you're doing, then I'd say no, don't get carried away. Eilir, did you want to comment?
Yeah, exactly the same points as you did, Fran. Fair play. Yeah, it's just a case of reviewing what you are, what's in it in a way. But as you said, I think protecting next season is key now. You don't want to be on like a hangover then of decisions you've made now.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Okay. Look, thank you both. And if there's no more questions, then we will wrap it up there. But yeah, well, thanks to everyone who's joined us, and again to Eilir and Fran for your comments. It's been really insightful. Thank you both for sharing your time and your thoughts. So there's some support and advice here with and from us guys. So if you needed that, then by all means please reach out and ask it.